All right, well, I am pleased to be a part of this discussion. Today we're speaking with Mr. Jeff Mao. He is with Digitus LBI, and Todd
Chefcheck, yes.
Chefcheck, yes, almost got it. With Leo Burnett, and we're going to be talking about leveraging emerging retail technology to build brands. And so let's just do a brief introduction for each of you. Jeff, we'll start with you on the end, and just tell us like what it is you're working on in this space, and we'll go on from there.
So I lead the experience strategy practice at Digitas, and we help our clients connect user experiences with the business strategy.
Say more.
So that means we try to understand what the customers or consumers are doing in life, and we look for places to help those customers that we can also create products or services that would be a nice fit to be the value exchange, something they would buy, right?
Yeah.
So it could be digital, it could be physical, it could be a service, it could be a product. We don't actually care at that early stage. We're looking for places to help people do things in life.
Okay.
So I lead our emerging technology practice at Leo Burnett, and we work with clients to also understand what their consumers are doing in different places, digital platforms or in retail, and then understand some of the problems that the brands might be having connecting with them, and then we develop solutions to help enable that connection. And so we actually partner very close together on a couple of particular clients at Leo Burnett as part of our Power of One offering. So that's how we work together.
Awesome.
Sister companies.
Sister companies, there you go. So how do we help brands expand their presence in retail environments or in the home? Like that seems like such a big open-ended kind of question, but how do you do that?
So I think the starting point for us is, again, like what does the consumer want? We always sort of start with people, understanding sort of how they're interacting with different. Hello.
There you're back.
How they're interacting with brands and what channels they're interacting with them. And then from there, understanding how to design solutions to help sort of get, help brands build products to help them either buy things or have experiences or consume content, whatever it is the brand is looking to do.
And to add to that, we have the term retail, but a lot of retail activities are happening mobile or at home or anywhere. So we've seen a huge shift, as we can see with a lot of the stories that are on the other side of this wall about you don't have to go into a store to have a retail experience. So that's a big inversion over the last, I don't know, 5 to 10 years.
5 to 10 years, yeah.
And that our clients come to us and say, what used to work is no longer working. What do we do?
Right, and we, when we're talking about preparing for this, the idea that buying things is just a click away now from designing experiences. We always have to think, someone will ultimately be able to buy something immediately during or after, they're having an experience with a brand. So, having that thinking sort of central to what it is that we're bringing to our clients is really what we do a lot of.
So I'm going to deviate a little bit here, because I was intrigued by what you started off that answer with, which is, I'm going to ask you, what do consumers want?
So it's funny, the other part of what we were talking about is 15 years ago, consumers, when they would shop, they would only basically shop in 2 different places. And today, that number has sort of completely changed to, I think it's anywhere between 4 and 6 different places. So a lot of that is driven by our phones, right?
Yeah.
So I think consumers want, they want, things to be as easy as possible with as little barrier as possible to get what it is that they want. So whether that's like ordering something online, just clicking a single button, having a product brought to you immediately, or being able to, interact with a product and have it give you the information that you want. I mean, that's what we all want, and there's a lot of products around here that are doing that in this show.
Yeah, I would add to that and say what we see is our consumers want the experience they want when they want it and where, and on their own terms. So rather than the classic advertising approach, which we might be really well known for actually, which is,
interruptive,
pushing the message on someone saying like, you want this.
Yeah.
That works short term, but long term, if you flip it, then and give the control to that customer, then they can engage with your product and your brand whenever, wherever, however, and that has longer term sustainable relationship implications, and so that's how we try to help our clients figure out what to do next.
Yeah, and I think like the experience part of this is making brands desirable to people, and making like instead of just broadcasting messages at them. That's really what's extremely important nowadays, because that's sort of the shift that's really occurred as consumers basically are empowered now with their phones to really turn and tune everything out unless it's relevant to them.
So I want to come back to that. I want to put a pin in that for a second.
Okay.
When you say they shop at 4 places, does that break down like more vertically because there are like more specialty stores available, or is it just they're going like how does that go? How does that dispersion break down? Do you know?
So the way I would think about it is there's more choice. Even though it's funny, there's a stat in 2017 more stores closed than ever before. That was a record year of store closings. But at the same time, you see things like the Apple Store on Michigan Avenue, sort of beautiful experiences, right?
Yeah.
So, I think the 4 to 6 stores, like, to me, probably two of those are online experiences. So maybe you have something that's just on subscription replenishment, like paper towels, things like that. And then the other part, people want to go to places that are experiences. So you see, like that Apple Store that I mentioned, or like Eataly, places where you can go and have an experience and not just shop to shop.
Right.
And places that are beautifully designed, places that are, entertaining to be in, places that you want to just meet people, have a cup of coffee. Like that's where stores are moving to. And I think with more of those opportunities, that's what you see people gravitating towards.
So I want to, you had touched on this a little bit, but in my interviewing startups as they're coming up, they keep talking about authenticity, right? As to create an experience that is authentic. And do you find that how are you is that coming up in your meetings with different companies? It's such a weird thing to say, like, we want to create authenticity, which seems like it's a bit of an oxymoron, but to like a millennial, like it becomes this really important thing that they feel like they're not being sold to. And you had mentioned how that's changed your job.
So it's related. That's a great one. It's related back to the that customer that's coming. Or they're no longer young, right? Millennials are buying homes and
they're young.
They're in their 30s.
As far as I'm concerned.
As far as you're concerned. Okay, but they're not like the just fresh out of high school, 21-year-old that we used to. The stereotype still might linger with. But it's again they want to be in control. They value experiences over things, and if you're authentic, if you're part of their world on their terms, and I would translate this into a lot of the digital platforms that we build focus on personalization. So to connect and be relevant to what the person is trying to do. And stop talking about them as consumers and more as people. And I've used all flavors of the word in the last 5 minutes. But the ability to personalize and be relatable helps drive the authenticity. And then also with the backlash of fake news and giving away all of your information to the Facebooks of the world, I think people are starting to value controlling their data more. And so when we create digital products and services, we want to do it in a way where if you have a voice-enabled product with Alexa, that we feel comfortable that it's not a surveillance system, right? It's like something that's there to help us when we're ready, but not something that's always listening, even if it kind of is. It's not quite clear yet, so there's an authenticity challenge with some of the new voice technology.
Okay. So. And to you both, now there are more digital tools for you to reach people than ever before, right?
Yes.
How do you actively evaluate those, right? Like there's always some new social channel that pops up and it's super popular, right? But it may not be the best channel for whomever you're working with. What's sort of the evaluation process you go through when determining for this, we want to help them, move from first mover to really get market share, right? And you want to be able to do that quickly because it's a very crowded marketplace.
Sure.
So what are sort of the techniques might be not the right word, but I feel like you're going to be constantly evaluating new channels that come up and figuring out what's the best. What's sort of the process you both go through in figuring out what's best for your client?
So one thing that we do is competitive analysis. So that's something that, looking at, a client's, all of their competition across all of their channels and seeing how they're using all of the different channels. And from there, seeing what's working, what's not working, where are their consumers? So understanding, are they on Twitter or Facebook, or are they on Snapchat or Instagram, or if they're on all of those things, how to use those different channels to speak to them and give them the kind of content that they're looking for within that area.
Yeah.
So we sort of look at it that way. A lot of our clients look for scale, so it sort of rolls out emerging like new social channels.
Yeah.
Until they sort of reach a certain
tipping point.
Yeah, tipping point. Then they're not going to really be interested.
So they're like Facebook, Twitter,
yeah,
Instagram.
Places that you would go, places where people are now.
Yeah.
At scale. And those are the kind of things where that's what our clients want to reach, those kinds of audiences. But you don't talk the same way in each one of those channels.
Right.
You use them for different things.
Yeah.
I would add to that we do things like social listening and use analytics and data science to understand what's going on in those different social channels.
Yeah.
So even if something is still smaller, it could be the right small audience.
Right.
If we want to catch it early.
Right.
And then, so there's the qualitative side about understanding people in their life, and then there's the quantitative side of really understanding what's going on at a trend level on a new social platform or digital, whatever it is. So.
What have client expectations changed in the past, we'll just say 5 years, right? As you can now reach, with Facebook, it's super easy to create an ad campaign that is very specific. Do they have different expectations going into a campaign or whatever kind of project working with you than they did before? And what are sort of is there sort of a baseline, rather than just like, we want to be huge, right? Like we want to be successful. Do they have certain expectations that they're coming in with now that maybe they didn't have before?
Yeah, I mean, I think like clients they want everything to be measurable. They want to understand what the return on the investment is. We need to understand what their goals are as well. If they have certain goals, interrogate the goals. Like, are those goals achievable based on what they're trying to do? And they want us to be able to prove the things that we're doing, because everything is a data point now.
Yeah.
So that's I think that's been a shift. Because of the way that everything's become digital, everything we do has to be measured. So.
Okay.
And I would add, the other thing that we see is they'll see something that Google or Netflix is doing and come back and say, we want something like that for us, even though we're in a completely different category. But an example would be Stranger Things was huge on Netflix last October, right?
Right.
Like season 2, and they actually had done personalized content delivery on Stranger Things where different images from the show were targeted towards different kinds of users of Netflix.
Yeah.
Because some people like the horror movie style, and other people like the Ghostbusters nostalgia, et cetera, et cetera. But that show was a great example where they created that story to have all those elements that they could then use to tailor to the different audiences.
Yeah.
And so that type of personalization strategy is something that we would map to a different product category, and the result would be different. But we're seeing them saying, we want that for us. But we have no idea what they did, but we know it was big.
And that's where is this really going to work part comes in, because although it may have worked for Netflix, it might not work for a CPG company or someone like that.
So then we end up prototyping it and running experiments, and then hopefully scale it, right?
Yeah. So I want to stick on that for a second. One, if you look in LinkedIn, right, you see a lot of people are digital storytellers, right? And that's like 3 years ago, everybody changed their resume to say, I am a brand storyteller. Is that something that's still happening? And how do you convey that across the different channels and tailor it for like retail to engender retail experiences or to generate retail experiences? Because brands now through Twitter and Facebook, they can control their narrative better than they ever have before. So they're in charge of their own story. And are you incorporating those elements, and how important is that to the ultimate success for you and your clients?
Yeah, I think I would replace story maybe with experience. Where experience becomes the thing that it's really what we try to focus on building to draw consumers into the brands. So story being part of that, but the overall experience and designing for that, I think, is really important. Driving people to stores, like I don't know.
I think storytelling still matters more than ever. And that's historically what Leo Burnett's the best at.
Right.
But now prototyping the experience to make the story interactive and something you can play with is increasingly important.
And across the whole journey, so it's if you see something on Facebook, does it actually appear when you're in a store, or maybe you see an ad on a train, and how that translates to what you're seeing on your phone. Like all of these things are all blending together, and I think the experience part, it is the story really. And if it starts all, and back to what we said before, if it all starts with understanding what consumers want, then it'll resonate across whatever channel.
Okay. And how has mobile impacted a brand's ability to reach consumers at scale, at retail?
Todd?
Yeah, so the other stat that we had looked at prepping for this was consumers spend 5 hours a day on average on their phones, and they interact or touch their phones 2,617 times on average. There was a study where they did, people, a research group put an application on people's phones and just watched that interaction. The heavily engaged users were around 5,600 times they were touching their phones a day. So, that's where everybody's attention is. And that, I think the ability to get all the world's information at literally, as long as you have a good signal, at the flip of your phone or the click of your phone, has changed everyone's expectation about being able to get things immediately. So, you think about being able to buy things in one click and having it come in 30 minutes. That's mobile has enabled all of those experiences, and knowing the consumers, every different consumer and all their different preferences and how they're using their phone, what apps they're using, what apps they're not using, all of that intelligence sort of bakes into how we need to and do develop experiences for our clients.
Okay. Now, I would add to that with two parts. On the technology front, the first is AI or machine learning helps shorten those timeframes even more, because now there's less human involvement required to hopefully get the right answer to what you're looking for. But then also, as the network speeds continue to expand and the coverage continues to expand, these things compound. Right? And they get into the whole conversation about exponential technologies and growth, where it's not just a wave and now we're digital and we're done. It's actually getting faster. And the 5G is coming for our cell phones, and there's satellite, internet coming from space soon in the next couple of years from SpaceX that'll be 10 times faster than the current Wi-Fi. And every time you have a jump like that, you get a proliferation of new devices or new capacities that you can take advantage of to make the user experience different or hopefully more authentic.
Right. And I think one of the other part we were looking at for this was there's how mobile's impacted and changed things really in the past 5 years. It's the next 5 years that are interesting, and knowing what Jeff said about how fast the connectivity is going to be with both 5G and other ways to interact. That's going to completely change. Really the reason you have a phone. It may go to look at all the patents that the big platforms have around glasses. A lot of the talk is that our phones will start to diminish in terms of how much we use them, and devices will go more towards our eyes, because this interaction of having my phone in between you and me isn't really natural.
Yeah, you're not even paying attention to me right now.
Right.
You're totally off reading something else.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So the ability to get rid of that is what a lot of the big platforms are, looking at, like Facebook and Apple and Google. They're all there in that space. So with the increasing speeds, that's going to change the way that brands will reach people, and to change the way you shop, change the patterns and things like that.
Talk about that. What is that? How does that impact retail? Like the accelerating technology and the pressure that puts on physical retail spaces.
Yeah, so again, it'll be, people will still want to connect. I mean, people still go to movie theaters to watch movies with other people. People will still want to go to physical spaces, but the purpose of the store, as we had said before, becomes more of an experience place. It's a social gathering place. So I think like that, like the physical aspect, even at a conference like this, like, maybe we won't need to come to these kinds of things in the next couple of years, but people still need to connect and talk and be able to be face to face. I think like as the technology becomes more, as it disappears more, the interface disappears. It opens up this ability for us to be more connected, and I think stores will still have a place, provided they have the right model and they have the right blend of experience and products, and they offer the right value to their consumers. So, awesome.
My addition to that is that it's already starting, but you should be able just to point your camera at any product in this floor and just order it.
Yeah.
Like, why can't we do that yet? I mean, you sort of can, but it's still clunky.
Let's take it up with somebody right now.
That's going to.
Well, they have it. It's out there.
We're working on it.
Yeah.
But without. So that will become easier and easier.
Yeah.
And so it'll just start to become more and more expected. So first, it's activating that physical product to have a digital layer to it, and then taking action on that. And everything is, so that's suddenly a retail experience.
Yeah.
Thus the term retail. But it's going to get weird.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, it's going to get weird.
Yeah.
Do we have any questions from the audience? Yes, sir.
Where do you guys see physical retail 3-4 years down the road?
Question was, where do you see physical retail 3 to 4 years down the road?
I mean, like I said, like even in a city like Chicago, like there's lots of closed storefronts and stores that aren't around anymore. Like Toys R Us the other day announced that they're going to close all their stores, but they have their model's outdated, and they're paying sort of the price for it right now. Again, like we've been saying, I think there will be, people still want to get together and people still want to gather, so stores that enable that kind of community building, like the Apple store that I mentioned, or Italy or other places, like people will still want that. And you think about like just being able to walk into a beautifully designed space and be able to interact with beautifully designed products like you see here, like that's still going to be fundamentally important. So I think it's maybe there won't be as many stores, but I think there still will be a reason to go to places. And
there's the classic example of, I need a new shirt, but I need something tailor-made. So it's already happening in some places, but the store would be a place to go get scanned and then have that created for you. And that scanning might be able to happen in the home as well, but there could be some high-touch customer experience along with a custom product. And I think things will become more customized, personalized.
So I want to take it back from 3 to 4 years, and just as we part, we're in our last question here is, what's one thing you think people should be on the lookout for this year as it pertains to what you do? Like either like what's got you excited, or you think is going to be here this year, something that's sort of more actionable.
Things that are more actionable. We spend a lot of time on that topic. I think augmented reality and like using that technology to enable experience, enable purchase, and doing it through the bigger, larger platforms, that's going to be, to me, really interesting. And I think a lot of our clients are really going to start to look at that space and are looking at that space.
And my add to that is back to examples like the Amazon Echo and Alexa, where as the home becomes smarter or the retail environment becomes smarter, that becomes an access point to start a relationship rather than the end cycle of buying something and putting it in your house. Because once you put that type of product in your house, now you have an ongoing relationship that you engage with that service over time. So I think we'll see more products become services.
Okay.
And that's been happening in the last couple of years, but it's accelerating.
Awesome. Well, this has been fascinating. Thank you, Todd and Jeff,
Thank you.
for
Thanks,
being
Chris.
here at the Smart Home Pavilion. Give them a big round of applause, please.
Thank you.